Last year, several pieces of legislation have been proposed with the aim of driving crime down. Today, Councilmember Brooke Pinto put out all those pieces of legislation into one big bill and is hoping the council will pass it. Fox 5's David Kaplan is live outside the Wilson building for us tonight. David, break down what's going on here.
Yeah, Shamari, good evening to you. Basically, it all boils down to this 93-page proposed omnibus bill that, as you mentioned, essentially rolls all of the proposed bills that D.C. Council's been talking about as it relates to crime last fall into this one umbrella. That's really the best way to think about it. Now, these hearings have largely been chaired by Judiciary and Public Safety Chair Brooke Pinto. They've been public. She's heard input. She's heard from the community, and it essentially is her goal to try and pass this in the next couple of weeks and take it through the committee and then the legislative process on the committee and the council as a whole. Now, let's talk a little bit about what's in here. We've been following this, but just to give you some of the highlights, there's an accountability component, new felony firearm offenses, making permanent an assumption of pretrial detention for those charged with violent crimes, establishing a new crime for organized retail theft, expanding the definition of carjacking to include if someone's near their vehicle and not necessarily in it. That makes it a harsher penalty. Create the possibility for harsher penalties for crimes involving guns. It also includes a more holistic component as well, establishing new career training programs at the DC jail to improve outcomes for when people are released, grant programs to improve safety in commercial corridors, giving police the ability to declare drug-free zones in crime hotspots. Pinto says there are about 100 components in this bill meant to improve all things public safety. Let's be clear here. There will not be a unanimous approval on every component of this legislation from the many advocacy and community groups who have spoken out against the other pieces of legislation that comprise this. Several have spoken out against some of these provisions, but from Pinto's perspective, as she held community walks and public hearings, she heard from people who think something needs to be done and done now.
It became clear throughout the fall that the public was calling for action, calling for change, and not just with one law or one intervention, but a sweeping set of changes to address what people are so frustrated by right now, which is the unacceptable levels of crime and violence. And so it became clear that it was most appropriate to move this as one package, to have one vote.
Yeah, David, we talked to people in the community and they are tired of the seemingly endless crime. Now, what are you hearing from the mayor and the council on this?
Yeah, Shamari, hard not to blame people when violent crime rose about 39% last year, according to MPD data. Mayor Bowser is out with a statement already saying she supports this. She wants to see it pass. She supported some of the smaller pieces of legislation that comprise this big omnibus bill. As for council, I reached out to every single member of council. The ones who did get back to me, some said they were still reviewing it. They just got it this morning as well. I heard from Councilwoman Brianne Nadeau, who says that she supports this, but does want to continue the conversation about a couple of components of this bill. We also heard from some community members about this. Someone I talked to a couple weeks ago who had some problems with one of the proposed pieces of legislation a couple weeks ago. Hear what he has to say coming up in our next hour. An interesting perspective. We'll share it with you.